Hello there, how are you doing? Welcome to IELTS Speaking Part 3 Tips. This is Passcode Global Consultants, where we endeavor to give you the best of tips to ensure that you pass your IELTS speaking exam. In our previous videos, we have looked at Introduction to IELTS. We have looked at IELTS Speaking Part 1. We have looked at Part 2. And now this lesson is geared towards understanding IELTS Speaking Part 3. We will be looking at example questions, we'll be looking at tips, we'll be looking at the structure of this part, and we will be asking you whether you have any concerns or questions, and in case you will be having them, our lines will be open to receive them and assist you accordingly. Now, without much ado, let's go to the structure of this part and what exactly happens in this part. And IELTS Speaking Part 3 is an extension of Part 2's topic. The topic you are doing in Part 2, that is what will be extended in Part 3, only that now, instead of you speaking alone, the examiner will be asking you questions and you'll be answering those questions. So quite a number of people would like to call it a two-way discussion. But to me, I wouldn't say it is a two-way discussion, because at the end of it all, it is you, the candidate, who does much of the talking. Actually, almost more than 80% of the talking is you who does. The examiner is there just to guide you on what you're going to talk about by asking you questions. So this section takes about 4 to 5 minutes, and it is thought to be the most demanding part. And the reason as to why people think this is the most demanding part is because this part has questions that stimulate your thinking. You will be asked questions that require you to think a lot, and you will be asked questions that are not necessarily aligned with your career. Say, for example, you don't like anything to do with technology, and these guys like asking questions to do with technology. They can ask you questions to do with the internet, questions to do with social media, questions to do with electronics, questions to do with robotics. But the good thing is that the kind of questions they ask are questions whereby you can think of an answer and craft an answer, even if it's something you had not thought about before, and come up with a very good answer. For example, they can ask you, do you think that in the future technology will replace teachers in the classroom? So you may not be able to go to specific technology or specific pieces of technology that may be able to replace teachers, but what you are needed to do is to craft a message or an answer, an idea that will convince the examiner whether technology will replace teachers or not. So there is no need to fear these questions, even if some people will tell you that this part is demanding. What you need to do is to be clear in your mind. Make sure you understand the question and craft an answer in the form of a paragraph, not making grammar mistakes, because you also need to be familiar with the marking scheme. Now, this part also gives you a chance to give your opinions on issues, because quite a number of questions will be asking you, what do you think? What is your opinion? And your answers will be in the form of, I think that, in my opinion, in my considered opinion, such kind of answers, because they will be aligned to what you think. Now, tips for IELTS Speaking Part 3. Now, this part, remember, we have said that it is a two-way discussion. The examiner will be asking you a lot of questions, question after question, you answering the questions. You need to describe issues in details. Remember, in details means that you will be doing a paragraph. You cannot just answer questions in one sentence and expect to get marks or to get a good band score. You need to describe issues in details. and that will be very helpful in you getting the required band scores. Now, we also want a person who can compare and contrast issues, because this is also very important. And I want to say at this point that comparing and contrasting issues is very important in expanding answers. It is an excellent strategy of expanding answers. Say, for example, they're asking you questions to do with the internet. You can compare someone working without the internet and another one working with the internet. For example, someone who has access to internet and can get information online compared to someone who is not connected to the internet, and they are only relying on reading hard books, for example. They may have hard time, while the person who is having access to the internet may have easy time getting the information they need. So when you do compare contrast on issues, you are able to expand them better than when you lean on one side. Now, another strategy of expanding answers in this part is to be able to look at the past, the present, and the future. Again, I would like to give an example with the internet or just general technology, maybe something like a mobile phone. Say the question is about a cell phone. You can think about the past when people didn't have a cell phone, and you can think about the present, compare with the present when people have cell phones of all kinds. And you also compare with the future, because you can try to imagine of what will happen in the future in terms of the cell phones. So when you do such kind of a comparison of the past, present, and future, you are able to get more ideas on how to expand your answers, and that will work to your advantage. Now, in this part, you also need to be imaginative and a fast thinker, but when I tell students about this, they laugh, because if you are not imaginative, how then can you be imaginative? If you're not a fast thinker, how can you be a fast thinker? So this is a lesson by itself, but maybe for the purpose of this exam, I need to say that for you to become imaginative and a fast thinker, you need to practice. You need to practice questions. You need to have a partner asking you questions if you don't have a trainer. But if you have a trainer, the better, because the trainer will be asking you questions and then you'll be answering those questions. The trainer will be able to gauge how imaginative you are, how fast can you think, and that is going to work again to your advantage, because you must practice before you go to do this exam. Now, you need to try every question. If you do not hear what the examiner has said, you have the chance to ask the examiner to re-ask the question. And you can use exclamations such as, "Excuse me, could you kindly repeat the question?" "Excuse me, I didn't hear, can you kindly repeat?" Something like that. In the instance where you have heard the question, but the question is very hard for you, maybe you may want the examiner to ask you to rephrase the question for you, or to ask you a different question. But it's good that you try to answer all the questions instead of banking on the aspect of asking the examiner to ask you a different question, because the different question may not be any easier than what you have been asked. On the aspect of varying your starting sentences, this is very critical, because you will have quite a number of questions to answer in part 3, and we don't want you to start your questions in the same form, to start your answers in the same form. This will become boring, and the examiner may also think that you have poverty of English words that you should be using to vary your answers. So we want you to vary your startings. We want you to start your answers in different ways. So say for the first question, for example, you started it by rephrasing the question, then you answered. The other question, you can start it by using words like, "Well, I think that," so you don't have to keep on repeating yourself or repeating the same format of answering the questions. That is what we mean by telling you to vary your startings of these questions. Don't repeat what you already said. Sometimes you can have a question that is similar to what you have already answered. So in this case, you cannot just reference what you have answered in the previous question and say, as I said in the previous question, I am like that. No, you can't do that. You need to come up with or to develop new ideas to answer the next question, because the previous question you answered has its own marks. The current question that you have has its own marks. So you need to ensure that even when questions are similar, you generate different ideas to develop a paragraph to answer the question. And when a question looks quite hard, sometimes you can pause a little to think about that question. But the worst thing happens when you pause for a long time, because when you pause for a long time, the examiner is not sure whether you are thinking or you don't have an idea. So that could bring a confusion. But really, having some time to think or arrange your thoughts so that you will have a well-flowing answer is not a crime, and you cannot lose marks for that. However, when you pause for long, that is not good. So now let us look at example questions, because this will help you to craft answers in IELTS Speaking Part 3. And what you realize is that the questions you'll be asked will be related in that the topic will be the same. So in the frame of questions, the examiner usually has a topic that they are using to examine you. Remember, the examiner will be having a frame of questions. They cannot add their questions. They will just be examining you on what they have been given to examine you. So let us look at a sample question and sample answer. The question is, why do you think some people like doing new things? And the answer is, new things help to develop the mind and improve critical thinking. People like exploring new things to get new experiences and challenge themselves. Also, discovering new stuffs helps, this should be stuff. Discovering new stuff helps one to have a variety to choose from whenever they are posed with a need. Now, when you look at this answer, again, it is a paragraph. It is not just a sentence. The question is, why do you think some people like doing new things? And this person has given more than one reason why they think so. So one of the tips in the introduction class that we said you need to expand your answers with more than one ideas. That is why you can see that this person has given the first idea and also the second idea, and they are well expanded. Next question. What problems can people have when they try new activities for the first time? Now, if you look at this question, you can see that what problems. So the question already requires a plural answer. And one of the mistakes that people do is that they are asked questions, then they answer in singular. What problem can people have is different from what problems can people have. So when they talk about problems, make sure that in your answer, you are talking about problems and not just one problem. So let's say the kind of answer the student gave. Trying new things can bring many challenges to a person. So look at that introduction. The introduction is just like the way we do writing. So they are introducing with the word challenges to mean that they will talk about problems and not a problem. Firstly, and again, they even go ahead to list using words that are known for listing or doing a list. Firstly, one lacks experience. One lacks the know-how and experience, and this can limit their success. Secondly, the lack of experience affects one's confidence, so they may not utilize their full potential. Moreover, new things can discourage a lot when one finds that the experience is very different from their expectations. So when you look at this question, this answer, it has three parts. It has three ideas. This candidate has given 3 ideas, and these ideas are very well explained. They are expounded. You can see this is a big paragraph answering that question. That is what is needed. Still another question on doing new things. Do you think it's best to do new things on your own or with people? Now, the answer is, I believe it's good to try new things with other people rather than on your own. This is because the risk of or any potential losses will be spread amongst the group members. Additionally, other people may be talented differently, may respond better to any challenges experienced, hence making it easier to tackle new experience. Again, a very concrete answer, very well expanded. And when you do that, there's no doubt that you're going to get the marks that are needed for this exam. So generally, that is what you are supposed to do in IELTS Speaking Part 3. It's a matter of you answering questions well, because those questions will not be hard. There will be questions, they will not be difficult. There are questions that you are on topics that you're familiar with, topics that things that you come across on a daily basis. So you don't need to be afraid of them. And therefore, you need to prepare well and ensure that you go past that exam. Now, if you have any questions, do not forget to get to us, maybe via comments or any other form, maybe a call or a WhatsApp. And remember, this presentation has been brought to you free of charge, courtesy of Passcode Global Consultants. We do teach IELTS, both academic and general, and also UKVI. If you need any assistance, again, do not forget to get to us. So until we meet in the next session, I want to wish you all the best. Thank you for watching. And remember to subscribe and share with your friends. Thank you.